Hi, this is Vicki Ortiz. This is my Week 7 video presentation. I chose to do my video presentation on Standard 1.7, Professionalism. Effectively apply the professional knowledge and skills to P through 12 teaching. I chose to look more into this standard because it is an overall application of everything that I've learned and how I actually apply what I have learned in the program to my everyday teaching. I've included different artifacts that show differentiation, that show how I plan my lessons using differentiation, rigor, using the district curriculum map, how I use different groups based on different levels of my students, and as well as talking about different ways that I use technology in my classroom and different ways of assessments. This presentation, I will be going through my curriculum maps, my lesson plans, my PLC notes, my data that I used for differentiation of my lessons, as well as a daily assignment board that I do on a daily basis to let my students know what they would be working on with their self-directed learning. First, I'm going to start with my curriculum maps. When I thought about one way that I can show how I've taken what I've learned and applied it to my professional knowledge, I thought about the fact that when we talked about our maps and how we use curriculum and how curriculum affects our learning, I thought that it would be good to include how I plan my curriculum, how our curriculum as a third grade reading teacher in Liberty County is planned. So we currently use the Georgia Pacing Guide that is actually given to us by the state of Georgia. And with that, as third grade at Frank Long Elementary, where I currently teach, we go through and we look at our pacing guide. We look at when we're supposed to be teaching what standards we should be teaching, and then we map out each month as a grade level what we're going to teach. We look at obviously our test windows, when we have to have our test windows, when we have a benchmark, any other little tidbits that we need to make sure that we include in our daily lessons. This, you can see a few months of our STAR planning with our curriculum. The March was all GMOS prep, getting ready for our state test. So we did not have a curriculum map for the state for March. So when I chose this, it looks at how we map out with our reading team and what we'll be working on each day. As well as, since our state map doesn't look at the supplemental things that our students need to be working on little by little, this is what our map also talks about. We have, like our current, if you see on January 15th, it has RL6, but then we also have setting, point of view, characters, plots. Those are other supplemental things that we are going to be working on as well. To help keep us all on the same track all together. Again, here's our curriculum, the way that we plan them out. The next thing I've included is 2 different types of lesson plans. One is from my current school year, and the other is from last year when I taught pre-K. These lesson plans show how my daily lessons are planned, grouped, and differentiated. They also indicate technology that is to be used, as well as DOK rigor levels. When I looked at this, I thought lesson plans show exactly how I take everything that I learned and incorporate it into my daily lessons as well, with, again, the use of technology, the planning of our lessons, the planning of our small groups, our DOK rigor levels. If you can see down at the bottom, it says informal teaching, our differentiation. We have struggling learners, extended learners, our online resources, our current test prep vocabulary. We have to do vocabulary, and then DOK rigor levels. This day would be a DOK 2. How can you identify when you are to compare and contrast two different texts? And then, of course, we continue our author study. This one's from Dr. Seuss, our standards that are going to be covered that day. We go down, again, differentiation, our assessments, informal and formal assessments, our objectives and standards that are being done, and again, informal, formal, another DOK, what is the best graphic organizer for comparing and contrasting. So each one of these show different ways. Our small groups are based off of what they've needed. One group is working with me, another group is working on literacy skills, another group is working on the iPads in small groups, and another is working on reading and taking AR tests, as well as our language arts also has the same kind of standards, vocabulary, and DOK explain how a subject and verb need to agree in a sentence. So that would be our rigor level for that day. And so I thought that it would be best to incorporate lesson plans due to the fact that it really shows how I take what I've learned with the levels, the rigor, the different groups for differentiation, and the technology to be used in my classroom into my everyday teaching. Here is just a little action plan that I had to do for pre-K that talks about skills, how I plan when I plan on teaching these skills, just different things as well, other ways to show that show what I plan on doing with my pre-K kids with my kindergarten action plan as well, to get them prepared for their math skills for kindergarten. Another thing that I chose for Standard 1.7 are PLC notes. I know that PLCs and planning with coworkers was a big deal throughout my entire master's program, so I thought it would be best to show that I actually do collaborate in a PLC on a weekly basis. I'm only going to include one of the PLC notes that I have on my portfolio. This was my current PLC with our last week's PLC, and the things that we actually discuss and we talk about, and not everybody is a third grade teacher that is in our PLC. The way that our agendas that we go through and we collaborate with, and different special areas, reading, and then we incorporate our notes on what we actually discussed. And this one was our discussion that we talked about what we're going to do when our state test standards come back. For those that did not score a 2 or higher, or the ones that scored a 1, we had to have a plan for those students and what we plan on doing for those students. So that was pretty much the gist of our entire PLC, was to put an action plan together for our students and the remediation for our GMAS. So I chose this because I thought it would be good to show that I actually do collaborate and work with PLCs on a weekly basis, and that I still understand the importance of PLCs, and we abide by the PLC guidelines as well. The next thing I chose for Standard 1.7 was data used to help with differentiation. I know differentiation is a big deal, and how we go about finding what groups we need to put our students in, what our students know and don't know, and the data and the collect that. I thought about the fact that data is a big deal. Data is a big thing that we've talked about a lot. We've learned how to look at data, analyze data. And so I thought it was a good idea to put in ways that I use data to help steer my instruction. And this is one of the ways that I chose I added was this is one of our online programs that we use for our students, and this was an overall pre-benchmark assessment that I took for them, and it helps me to see what they've mastered, what they haven't mastered, and this again was a pre-assessment, so I can see what they really knew, what they didn't know, and what we needed to dig into a little bit more. As you can tell, recounting stories part 1 they did not do so well on. Recounting stories part 2 they did 42% on. The recounting stories they did 26.3% on. So that let me know that they really needed to work on recounting stories. Along with lessons and morals, they didn't do too bad on, but they still need a lot of help with that in recounting stories. Sequence of events, they did all right on for questions 9, 10, 11, and 12. I went through and it just let me see which ones, and then I was able to go back and individually look at question number 1 and see, okay, why did only 3 of my 19 students get 15.7% right? So I was able to see, well, what kind of question was that? So I was able to go through and look to see, okay, how do I need to go, what do I need to work on with my students? Okay, the next thing that I chose is another way of data collection and differentiation that I use. This is another online program, iStation. This is actually required by the school that my students use on a daily basis. And I can go through, and this is overall class scores, and then I can go through and see my students' names are marked off. I can see these tier colors are tier 3s. Those are the ones that need the most work and the most help. And then I can use, this is vocabulary, spelling, fluency. I can see, okay, well, this one needs help all across the board. This one has a tier 2 in fluency, but a tier 3 in vocabulary and comprehension. And then I have this student here, he's a tier 1. And then this one, of course, is they have tier 1, 3, and then 1. So I know that they need to really work on vocabulary more so than the other skills. So this allows me to see, okay, I need to group these students, all these 3s together, all the 2s together, and all the 1s together. So I chose this form of data collection as another way to show how I differentiate my groups, how I use the data that I have and that I collect to, again, steer my instruction. The last thing that I included on my 1.7 was my daily assignment board for differentiation, self-direction, personalized learning. I chose to do personalized learning with my students. I think it was a big thing for them to be able to come in and be responsible for their own learning. And I know that that is a type of learning environment that we have worked on. And so I wanted to show that I've actually taken what I've learned again and put it into my everyday teaching with personalized learning, with learning groups. They come in, they look at the board. As you can tell, each day I do something different. The top part, I can statement, stays the same for the entire week, but the to-do part changes daily with pink, blue, and green. And the pink, blue, and green group changes as students change. If a student advances, then they go to a different level. Or if they don't advance yet, they stay in the same level. Green is my lowest, blue is my middle on level students, and pink is my more advanced students. So they start from green and they move all the way up to pink, and depending on what level they're on, depends on what assignments they get. They get assigned different assignments based on their Lexile levels. And so this is just a way that I use to help my students do their personalized learning. They come in, they see what they need to do. If we do need whole group instruction, we do that first, and then I go through and I explain each colored group, what they're going to be doing that day, and then I tell them, get to work. And I pull the group that I'm going to be working with, and I work with them. And that is my project, and that is my 1.7, why I chose the assignments that I chose, all which show that I have taken what I've learned and I have applied them to my everyday teaching in my classroom. And those are the artifacts that I